Every story has a moment that changes everything, and today, we're about to discover it. The wind hit first, sharp, cold, relentless. It tore across the rooftop like it had somewhere to be, dragging loose debris and broken glass across the concrete. Sirens echoed far below, distant but rising, getting closer with every con that passed. Kendra stood at the edge, not moving, not blinking. Her breathing was steady, controlled in a way that didn't match the chaos around her. Because this wasn't panic. This was focus. Across from her, two figures moved in the shadows, their voices low, urgent, almost drowned out by the roar of the wind. One of them stepped forward, slightly, tension in his stance, like he was seconds away from making a move he couldn't take back. "Kendra," he called, but the name didn't land. Not here, not now. She didn't respond, because in this moment, she wasn't Kendra. Her eyes shifted, sharp, calculating, tracking every movement, every angle, every possible T-com, like her mind was running 10 steps ahead of reality. Then, a voice cut through everything, firm, commanding, familiar. "Phoenix, we're out of time." The word hit differently. "Phoenix." Her jaw tightened slightly. Not from fear, from recognition, because that name carried weight. History. Something buried deep beneath the life she had TRD to build. A sudden sound, metal scraping behind her, too close. Her body reacted before thought could catch up. She pivoted, fast, precise. Everything about her movement spoke of training, of instinct, of a version of herself that died hesitate. Didn't second guess, didn't freeze. The man in front of her raised something, and for a split second, everything slowed. The wind, the noise, even her breath. This was it. The moment where everything would change. Again. Her eyes locked forward, unshaken, unbreakable. And then, the city didn't care. Not about timing, not about pressure, and definitely not about second chances. And somewhere in the middle of it, Kendra was running late. "Come on, please," she muttered under her breath, eyes locked on the subway doors as they SL shut right in front of her face. A beat. Then the train pulled away. Just like that. She exhaled sharply, stepping back as the platform filled with people who barely noticed her. Conversations overlapped. Footsteps rushed past. No one slowed down. No one ever did. Kendra glanced at her phone again. 5 minutes late, her stomach tightened. Great. Just great. She tapped her foot, forcing herself to stay still as the next train crawled in like it had no urgency at all. The seconds stretched longer than they should have. Today mattered. More than most days. At 29, she wasn't chasing dreams anymore. She was trying to hold on to one before it ipped through her fingers completely. The hospital building stood tall, polished, and cold. Kendra paused just outside the revolving door, catching her reflection for half a second. She adjusted her blazer, smoothed it down, and forced a small nod. "You got this," she whispered. Then quieter. "Just don't mess it up." Inside, everything felt sharper, voices clipped, movements precise. Every second counted. She approached the front desk. The receptionist barely looked up. "Third floor, conference room B." A pause. "You're late," that word again. Kendra swallowed, nodding quickly as she turned toward the elevator. The room was too quiet. 3 people sat across from her, watching, waiting. "Tell us about a time you handled a high-pressure situation," one of them said. Simple question. She had answers, plenty of them. Kendra opened her mouth, and nothing came out. Her mind stalled, not empty, just blocked. A voice crept in. "What if you're not enough?" She blinked, forcing herself to speak. "Well, She stopped. One of the panelists exchanged a glance with another, quick, subtle, but loud enough. "I've handled situations during my rotations," she tried again. "Can you be specific?" Another interrupted. Her rhythm broke, thoughts tangled, confidence slipped. And just like that, the moment was gone. By the time she stepped outside, she already knew. No call, no second chance, nothing. Inside her apartment, the silence settled in, heavy, unavoidable. She dropped her bag, sat on the edge of her bed, and stared at the floor. For a moment, she said nothing, then quietly, "I failed, not dramatic, not loud, just real." And somehow, that hurt more. Silence has a way of making thoughts louder. Kendra sat there still, her words hanging in the air long after she said them. "I failed." It didn't echo, it didn't need to, because once you say something like that out loud, it settles in deeper. And the hardest part, it's not the failure itself, it's the questions that come after. What if that was your shot? What if you're not as ready as you thought? What if all the effort, all the sacrifice, still isn't enough? Kendra let out a slow breath, leaning forward slightly, elbows resting on her knees. For a second she closed her eyes, trying not to feel it, trying not to sit in it. But emotions don't work like that. They wait, and then they speak. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever had a moment like this, and you miss it? Not because you didn't try, not because you didn't care, but because for 1 second, everything inside you just didn't line up the way it was supposed. That feeling? It stays with you, longer than it should, because the truth is, most people aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of what failure might prove. That maybe they're not who they thought they were. That maybe they've been holding on to something that was never really theirs to begin with. And that thought? It's heavy. But what if the moment you call your lowest point isn't the end of your story? What if it's actually the beginning of something you never saw coming? Something bigger. Something you weren't even trying to find. Stay with me, because this story, it doesn't go where you think it will. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. If you've ever faced a moment like this, go ahead and like this video. It helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever felt like you missed your moment? And if you're new here, subscribe. Because stories like this, they don't just entertain, they stay with you. Everything started to change. Welcome to Mr. Obama Stories, where stories don't just get told, they come alive. This is the home of powerful American stories. Stories of struggle, success, mystery, history, the unforgettable moments that shape people, communities, and dreams. From inspiring life journeys to shocking real events, every story here is crafted to make you think, feel, and see the world differently. At Mr. Obama Stories, we believe every voice matters and every story carries a lesson. Whether it's motivation, history, real-life drama, or untold experiences, you'll always leave with something unforgettable. So sit back, relax, and let the story begin. Because here, every story has a meaning, and every meaning has a story. Subscribe and become part of the journey. The city was already moving before Kendra stepped onto the platform. Not slowly, not patiently, but with the kind of urgency that didn't wait for anyone to catch up. Footsteps echoed against the tiled floor as people pushed past each other, each person locked into their own direction, their own timeline, their own pressure. Conversations blended into noise. A train roared somewhere in the distance, its sound growing louder as it approached. Kendra adjusted the strap of her bag and checked her phone again. Time wasn't on her side. It hadn't been for a while. Okay, just breathe, she murmured, though her pace didn't slow. The train pulled in, metal grinding against metal, doors sliding open with a sharp mechanical sound. People rushed forward before others could even step off, creating a brief moment of chaos that no one seemed surprised by. Kendra moved with them, slipping into the crowd, her shoulder brushing against strangers who didn't look twice at her. That was New York. She found a small space near the pole, steadying herself as the train jerked forward. Her reflection flickered faintly in the scratched window across from her. For a second, she caught her own eyes. Tired, focused, trying. She looked away. Outside, the city blurred past in streaks of gray and color, buildings stacked tightly together like they were competing for space. Every stop came and went quickly. Every second mattered. And yet, it never felt like enough. At 29, Kendra had learned how to keep moving even when things didn't line up the way she planned. Life had taught her that early. Brooklyn didn't give you much room to stand still. She grew up in a neighborhood where doors stayed open just long enough for voices to travel through the halls. Laughter carried from one apartment to another. Music filled the air on weekends, blending with conversations that never really had a beginning or an end. People knew each other, not just by name, but by story. And in that environment, you learned quickly that strength wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it looked like showing up, even when everything felt heavy. Her mother used to say it often. Don't let the world rush you into becoming someone you're not. Kendra didn't always understand it back then, but she understood it now, rushing you, testing you, pushing you to prove yourself over and over again. The train slowed, then stopped. This is your stop, she whispered to herself, stepping forward as the doors opened again. She moved quickly, weaving through people, up the stairs, and back into the open air. The noise hit her instantly. Car horns, distant sirens, voices layered on top of each other. Everything was loud. And right in the middle of it, she had somewhere she needed to be. Kendra crossed the street, adjusting her blazer as she walked, Her steps were quick but controlled, like she was trying to stay ahead of something she couldn't quite name. Today wasn't just another day. It was a chance. One she couldn't afford to lose. She stopped just short of the hospital entrance, the building rising above her with clean glass and sharp edges that reflected the sky like it belonged to a different version of the city. For a brief moment, she didn't move. Not because she didn't want to go in, but because stepping through those doors meant stepping into a moment that could shift everything. Her grip tightened slightly around her bag. "All right," she said quietly. No hesitation, no second guessing, just a decision. She pushed the door open and walked inside. The air changed immediately. Cooler, controlled, focused. People moved with intention here. Conversations were shorter, sharper. Every action had a purpose. Kendra slowed just enough to take it in, not nervously, but carefully. Because this was where she needed to belong. And for the first time that day, something inside her settled. Not completely, but enough. Enough to take the next step. The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. Not because it was slow, but because every second inside it gave her more time to think. And thinking wasn't helping. Kendra stood still, eyes fixed on the numbers as they climbed one floor at a time. Around her, two people spoke quietly about schedules. Another scrolled through their phone, completely unbothered. Normal. Everything felt normal to them. But for her, this wasn't routine, this was pressure. The doors opened with a soft chime, third floor. Kendra stepped out, adjusting her blazer again as she followed the hallway signs. Her shoes clicked lightly against the polished floor, each step echoing just enough to remind her she was here. And there was no turning back. Conference room B. She paused outside the door, just for a second, then knocked lightly and stepped in. 3 people sat across from her, already waiting. That alone told her everything. She was late. "Good afternoon," she said quickly, offering a polite smile as she took her seat. The panel acknowledged her with brief nods. No warmth, no small talk, just structure, just expectation. "Let's begin," one of them said. No easing into it, no transition, straight to the point. Kendra sat up slightly, hands resting together, posture controlled. She had prepared for this. She knew she had. Every possible question, every scenario. She had gone over it all. She was ready. Or at least, she thought she was. "Tell us about a time you handled a high-pressure situation." There it was, the kind of question that should have been easy, because her life had been full of those moments. Kendra inhaled, opened her mouth, and paused. Not visibly, not dramatically, but enough. Enough for something to shift. Her thoughts didn't disappear. They collided. Too many options, too many memories, too many ways to answer. Pick one, just pick one. "Well," she started, her voice steady at first. "During my rotations I had to manage." "Be specific," another panelist said, cutting in cleanly. No hesitation, no softness. The interruption threw off her rhythm, just slightly, but enough. Kendra nodded quickly. "Right. There was a patient situation where—" "Which one?" Her mind moved fast, but not clearly. Moments flashed through her head. Different scenarios, different outcomes. None of them settling long enough for her to anchor onto one. Her grip tightened slightly. She could feel it. That shift, that pressure, the kind that builds quietly and then suddenly becomes everything. She tried again, this time slower. And that was it. That hesitation. That single break in flow. It changed the energy in the room. One of the panelists leaned back slightly. Another glanced down at their notes. No one said anything. But the silence? It said enough. Kendra pushed forward. "I've handled multiple situations under pressure," she said, trying to regain control, especially in fast-paced environments where— "Can you walk us through one clear example?" the first panelist asked again. Same tone, same calm. But now it felt heavier. Because she knew what they were hearing. Uncertainty. And that wasn't who she was. But in this moment, it looked like it. Kendra swallowed, forcing herself to focus. "Pick one, stay with it. There was a patient who," she began, finally locking onto something. But her delivery wasn't the same anymore. The confidence had shifted. Her words came out measured, careful, almost like she was checking each one before saying it. Not natural, not fluid, and definitely not strong. She could feel it slipping, not all at once, but gradually, like trying to hold on to something that was slowly moving out of reach. The rest of the interview followed the same pattern. Questions came. She answered. But not in the way she knew she could have, not in the way she needed to. By the time it ended, no one said anything negative. No criticism, no correction, just, "Thank you for coming in, professional, polite, final." Kendra nodded, offering a small smile as she stood up. Thank you for your time. Her voice was steady, but inside, everything felt off. The door closed behind her. And just like that, it was over. No dramatic moment, no clear failure announced, just a quiet understanding. She stood there for a second in the hallway, still, processing, then exhaled slowly. Heavy, because deep down, she already knew that wasn't her best, not even close. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever had a moment like this, where you knew you were capable of more, but when it mattered most, something didn't line up? Not because you didn't try, not because you didn't care, but because something inside you just didn't connect the way it should have. That kind of moment stays with you, long after it's over. Kendra straightened slightly, adjusting her bag as she started walking toward the elevator again. No rushing now, no urgency, just movement. Because when something doesn't go the way you planned, all you can really do is keep going. If you've ever had a moment like this, a moment where you knew you could have done better, drop a comment, just one word. Me. Outside, the city felt louder than before. Not because anything had changed, but because now she could hear everything. Car horns stacked on top of each other, voices rising and falling in passing conversations, a siren cutting through the distance, sharp and constant. Kendra stepped onto the sidewalk, her pace steady but without direction. There was nowhere urgent to be anymore. That part was over. A man brushed past her shoulder. "Watch it," he muttered, barely slowing down. Kendra glanced at him for a split second, then kept walking. Normally she would have said something. Not today. Today she didn't have the energy to react. Her thoughts were already loud enough. She crossed the street without rushing, blending into the flow of people moving in every direction. Everyone had somewhere to go. Everyone had something to do. Life kept moving, even when yours felt paused. Kendra adjusted her grip on her bag, her shoulders slightly tense as she walked. The rhythm of her steps didn't match the city anymore. It was slower, heavier, each step carrying more than just movement. By the time she reached her apartment building, the noise had started to fade. Not completely, but enough for the silence to begin settling in. She stepped inside, the door closing behind her with a soft click. The hallway stretched ahead, familiar and unchanged. Her neighbor's door was open. Music played from inside, upbeat, lively, followed by laughter that spilled out into the corridor like nothing in the world was wrong. Kendra paused briefly, just long enough to notice it, then kept walking, because sometimes, the hardest thing about a quiet moment is realizing that everything else around you is still going. Her steps slowed as she reached her door, keys in hand, a small pause, then she unlocked it and stepped inside. The silence hit differently here, not empty, not cold, just present, her space, her world, exactly the way she left it. Kendra closed the door behind her and stood there for a moment, her hands still resting on the NDLE. No movement, no distraction, just her, and the weight of the day catching up. She let out a slow breath and dropped her bag gently to the floor before walking toward the bed. Then she sat, not heavily, not dramatically, just enough to stop moving. Her eyes settled on nothing in particular. Her thoughts didn't rush, they didn't need to. Because the truth had already formed, she just hadn't said it yet. A few seconds passed, then quietly, I failed. No anger, no frustration, just honesty, the kind that doesn't need volume to be real. She stayed there for a moment longer, then exhaled and pushed herself up. All right, she murmured softly, brushing her hands together like she was resetting something. I eyed herself. We're not staying stuck. Not today. She moved into the kitchen, reaching for a mug without thinking. The routine felt automatic, familiar in a way that didn't require effort. Coffee. Not because she needed it, but because it gave her something to do, something small she could control. She filled the kettle and set it down, leaning lightly against the counter as she waited. Her eyes drifted across the room, then stopped. There, on the counter, a small frame, slightly tilted. Kendra walked over and adjusted it carefully, her fingers lingering for a second longer than necessary. The photo inside was old, edges worn slightly, but clear enough. She didn't say anything at first, just looked. Then, quietly, you'd probably say something right now. A faint smile touched her lips, not wide, not forced, just enough, because some memories didn't fade. They just stayed quiet. The kettle clicked. Then, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Unknown number, her brow tightened slightly. Not today, she muttered, turning back to her mug. The phone buzzed again, more persistent this time. Kendra paused, looked at it again. A moment passed, Then she reached for it. Hello? Silence. Not disconnected. Just waiting. Her expression shifted slightly. Hello? She repeated. Then, a voice, deep, controlled, familiar in a way that didn't make sense yet. Is this Kendra? She straightened slightly. Yes. Who's this? A pause. Measured. Then. Interesting. Her grip tightened just a little. What is the Kendra I know? Another pause. Doesn't freeze under pressure. Her heart skipped. Just once. Enough to feel it. I think you have the wrong person, she said, cautious now. Another pause. Shorter this time. No. Firm. Certain. I don't. Silence followed. Heavy. Then, that's not your name. Her breath caught. Because something inside her already knew. The voice continued. Low. Deliberate. It's Phoenix. Everything stopped. Not the city, not the world, just her. Because in that moment, the past she thought she had left behind was no longer quiet. The word didn't fade. It stayed. Not loud, not echoing, but fixed. Phoenix. Kendra didn't move. Her fingers tightened around the phone, her grip steady but firm, like letting go wasn't an option. For a second, she didn't speak. Because speaking meant confirming something she wasn't ready to face. Her eyes shifted slightly, focusing on nothing in particular, while her mind moved somewhere else entirely. Not to the present, but backward, fast. Who is this? She asked, her voice lower now, more controlled, less uncertain. On the other end, the silence wasn't empty. It felt intentional, measured. Like whoever was there already knew exactly what this moment meant. You really don't recognize my voice? That question landed differently. Not because of what it asked, but because of how it was said. Calm, grounded, unshaken. Kendra's expression tightened just slightly, her breathing slowed, not forced, natural, like her body was adjusting before her mind fully caught up. Because something about that voice, it wasn't unfamiliar, it was buried. She turned slightly, leaning her shoulder against the counter, eyes narrowing just a bit as she listened again. Say something, anything. The silence stretched for a second longer. Then, Xavier? The name came out carefully, not rushed, not guessed, recognized. A brief pause followed. Then, yeah, simple, direct. It's me. Kendra's grip on the phone loosened just slightly, not relaxed, just adjusted, because now everything had shifted. This wasn't random, this wasn't confusion, this was real. You, she started, then stopped, recalibrating. You're calling me now? There was no accusation in her tone, just disbelief. Yeah, Xavier replied, same calm, same control. Nothing about his voice suggested urgency, but something about it carried weight. Kendra pushed herself off the counter, taking a few slow steps forward without realizing it. After all this time, she added, still trying to place the moment, still trying to understand why now. On the other end, Xavier didn't answer immediately. And that pause, it said more than a quick response ever could, because it meant this wasn't random, it was deliberate. I wasn't sure if you'd pick up, he said. Kendra let out a quiet breath through her nose. Yeah, well, I almost didn't. A slight shift in tone. Not hostile, but guarded. There was history here. Unspoken. Unresolved. And both of them knew it. Kendra walked slowly toward the window, her free hand resting lightly against the edge of the frame. Outside, the city moved like it always did. Unchanged, unaware. Meanwhile, everything inside her had just shifted. You don't just call someone after years, she said. You definitely don't call them by a name they don't use anymore. Her voice wasn't raised, but it was firm, clear, a boundary, or at least an attempt at one. Didn't argue. Quietly. I know. That response wasn't defensive. It was accepting, which made it harder to dismiss. Kendra's jaw tightened slightly. Then why say it? No hesitation this time. Because it still belongs to you. The answer came fast, certain, and that certainty. It hit harder than she expected. Kendra looked down briefly, shaking her head once as if to clear something she didn't want settling in. That's not who I am anymore. Her voice was steady, but not as strong as she wanted it to be. Isn't it? Xavier asked. No pressure, just a question. But one that didn't leave room to hide. Kendra didn't respond immediately. Because the truth, It wasn't simple. On the other end of the line, Xavier shifted slightly, though his voice didn't change. "I heard about today," he said. That caught her off guard. Her head lifted slightly. "What?" "The interview." A brief pause. "You froze." Kendra exhaled once, sharper this time. "That's great. No anger, just disbelief. You've been keeping tabs on me?" "Not like that," he replied. "Then how?" Another small pause. "I pay attention to things that matter." That answer didn't feel casual. It felt intentional, and for a second, Kendra didn't know what to do with that. She turned away from the window, pacing once across the room. "You don't get to do that," she said. "Show up out of nowhere. Say things like that. Act like you know where I am or what I'm due, G." Her voice stayed controlled, but now there was tension in it. Real tension. "I'm not acting," Xavier said. Still calm, still steady. "I do know." That stopped her. Not completely, but enough. There was something about the way he spoke, not forceful, not aggressive, but certain in a way that made arguing feel complicated. And that was always his strength. Not volume, not pressure, just presence. Kendra ran a hand lightly across her forehead, exhaling slowly. "This doesn't make sense," she said. "No warning, no explanation, just—" "Phoenix," he said it again, not louder, not softer, just the same, and somehow, that made it harder to ignore. Kendra closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again. Focus now. More grounded. Because whatever this was, it wasn't going away. "Why are you really calling me, Xavier?" This time her voice didn't carry hesitation. Just clarity. And on the other end, for the first time, he didn't answer immediately. The silence on the line didn't feel empty, it felt like a door. One that had already been opened, just not fully stepped through. Kendra stood still in the middle of her apartment, the phone pressed to her ear, her focus sharpened now in a way that hadn't been there earlier. Not during the interview. Not on the walk home. This was different. Because this wasn't about proving anything. This was about remembering. "You're not answering me," she said. Her tone wasn't impatient. It was steady, grounded. Xavier exhaled lightly on the other end. "I will," he said. "But not the way you want." Kendra's brow tightened. "That doesn't make sense. It will—" A brief pause. Then, "Tell me something first." Her grip shifted slightly. "What? When was the last time you actually felt like yourself?" The question landed harder than expected, not because it was complicated, but because it wasn't. Kendra didn't answer right away. Because answering it meant going somewhere she had avoided for a long time. "I am myself," she said finally. But even as the words left her mouth, they didn't feel complete. Xavier didn't challenge her directly. He didn't need to. "All right," he said. "Then answer this." Another pause. "When things go wrong, when the pressure hits, when everything starts closing in." His voice remained calm, measured. "What's your first instinct?" Kendra's eyes shifted slightly, her body stilled. Because she knew the answer, she just didn't want to say it. "Move. Adapt. React. Not freeze. Never freeze." Her jaw tightened. "That's not fair," she said. "Why?" Xavier asked. "Because people change." "Yes," he replied. "They do." A beat passed. "But instincts don't disappear." Kendra walked slowly toward the table, her fingers brushing lightly against the surface as she moved. "You don't understand," she said. Her voice softer now, less defensive, more honest. "I left that behind." "You stepped away," Xavier corrected. "Same thing. No, simple, direct." "Not the same thing." Kendra stopped walking, turned slightly. Even though he wasn't in the room, it felt like he was. "You don't get to define that for me," she said. "And you don't get to erase it," he replied. Not louder, not sharper, just firm. That hit. Because it wasn't an attack, it was a statement. And the worst part of her agreed. Kendra leaned back slightly against the edge of the table, her free hand resting beside her. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Doing what?" "Bringing this back up." A pause. Then, "Because it never left." Her eyes closed for a second. Just one. But enough. Because that answer... It didn't feel like pressure. It felt like truth. "You remember how they tested you?" Xavier continued. Kendra's eyes opened again. Focus returning. Sharp now. You remember how nothing was ever simple? Images moved through her mind. Quick, clear, not fully formed, but close. You weren't chosen because it was easy, he said. You were chosen because you adapted faster than anyone else. Kendra's breathing shifted slightly. Not heavier, but more aware. You didn't wait for instructions. You didn't hesitate. You didn't second guess. Each word landed with precision, like he was rebuilding something piece by piece. You observed. You calculated. And when it mattered. A brief pause. You moved. Kendra's fingers curled slightly against the table. Because every word, it wasn't new. It was familiar. And that's why they gave you that name, Xavier said. Not rushed, not emphasized, just stated. Not because it sounded strong, but because no matter what situation you were in, you found a way through it. Kendra let out a quiet breath. Her gaze dropped slightly. That was a long time ago. Yes, Xavier said. It was no argument, no correction, just agreement. And somehow, that made it harder. Things are different now, she added. I have a life here. I know. I'm not that person anymore. I know. The repetition caught her attention. Her head lifted slightly. You keep saying that, she said. Because it's true. A pause. Then, but not in the way you think. Kendra's expression shifted. Slightly. Enough to show she was listening now, not resisting. You built something stable, Xavier continued. Something structured. Something that makes sense on the surface. His tone didn't carry judgment. It carried observation. You wake up, you follow a path, you aim for outcomes that are predictable. Kendra didn't interrupt. That's not wrong, he added. It's just, not you. Her grip tightened again. This time, not from confusion, from conflict. You don't get it, she said quietly. This isn't about what I am or what I was. It's about what I chose, and I chose to leave. Xavier didn't respond immediately. And that silence. It wasn't avoidance. It was consideration. Then let me ask you something, he said. Did you leave because you wanted to? That question didn't come fast. It came carefully. And it landed exactly where it needed to. Kendra didn't answer. Because she couldn't. Not honestly. The room felt different again. Not tense, not quiet, but aware. Because the truth wasn't hidden anymore. It was just unspoken. Why now? She asked again. But this time, her voice had changed. Less resistance, more focus. On the other end, Xavier finally shifted. Not in tone, but in direction. Because something's changed, he said, and whether you like it or not. A brief pause. It connects back to you. The words didn't rush her. They settled. Slow. Heavy. It connects back to you. Kendra didn't move right away. Her eyes stayed fixed ahead. Her thoughts shifting into something sharper now. This wasn't about memory anymore. This wasn't about identity alone. This was about consequence. What does that mean? She asked. Her tone had changed. Clear. Direct. No hesitation. On the other end, Xavier didn't answer immediately. But this time the pause didn't feel like avoidance. It felt like calculation. Exactly what it sounds like, he said. That something connected to Phoenix is active again. Kendra's jaw tightened. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't need to make sense. Yet, it does to me. Firm. Controlled. Because this wasn't a conversation she was going to drift through. Not anymore. She pushed herself off the table and began pacing slowly. You're talking about something I walked away from, she said. No, Xavier replied. I'm talking about something that didn't walk away from you. That stopped her. Her steps slowed. Then halted. Because there it was again, that same pattern. He wasn't pushing, he wasn't forcing. He was placing truths in front of her and letting them sit. She said, her voice lower now, focused. I didn't reach out. I didn't get involved. You disappeared, Xavier said, not interrupting, correcting. And that worked. For a while, Kendra turned slightly, her eyes narrowing just a fraction. For a while? She repeated. Yes, simple, certain. A beat passed. Then, what changed? On the other end, Xavier shifted slightly, not audibly, but enough that his next words carried more weight. People started asking questions. Kendra's expression didn't change, but her attention sharpened. What kind of questions? The kind that don't get asked unless someone is looking for something specific. Her grip tightened around the phone again. And they're looking for... What? A brief pause. Then, you. The word landed clean. No build-up, no emphasis. Just direct. Kendra let out a slow breath. Not shaken, not panicked, but processing. Why? She asked. Because of what you were part of. I wasn't part of anything official. That doesn't matter. She exhaled again, this time slightly sharper. It should. It doesn't, Xavier repeated. Not to the people asking. Kendra ran a hand through her hair, turning away again as she paced once more. This doesn't add up, she said. I kept my distance. I didn't leave anything behind. You left more than you think. That line lingered, because it carried implication. And she heard it. What did I leave? She asked. This time Xavier didn't answer right away. And that delay, it wasn't hesitation, it was choice. Enough for someone to notice, he said finally. Kendra stopped again, completely still now. Because something about that, it wasn't just about the past, it was about the present. And you're just telling me this now? She asked. No, what do you mean no? I've been aware of it for a while. Her eyes narrowed further. A while? Yes. And you didn't think to call me? I didn't think it would reach this point. That answer didn't sit well. You made that decision for me, she said. Not loud, but firm. Xavier didn't argue. You were out, he said. You had distance. I wasn't going to pull you back unless I had to. Kendra's expression shifted. Slightly. Because that wasn't control. That was restraint. And now? She asked. A beat. Then, now I don't have that option. Silence filled the space again, but this time, it wasn't heavy. It was focused. Kendra leaned back against the wall, her posture straightening slightly. Not defensive. Prepared. What exactly are you asking me to do? She said. On the other end, Xavier didn't hesitate this time. Nothing yet, her brow tightened. Nothing. Not until I see you. Kendra shook her head slightly. No, that's not how this works. Then how does it work? He asked. She paused, because she didn't have an answer for that. You're asking me to step back into something I walked away from, she said. You're telling me people are looking for me. And then you're saying nothing yet? Her voice remained controlled, but now there was tension behind it. Real tension. I'm asking you to listen, Xavier said. That's all. Kendra let out a quiet breath. This isn't just listening, she said. You know that. I do, he replied. And that's why I called. A pause followed. Then, because, if this continues the way it's going, his voice didn't change. But something about it sharpened. You won't get to stay on the outside of it. That line landed, not as a threat, as a reality. Kendra looked down briefly, then back up, her expression steadier now, more grounded. You always do this, she said quietly. Do what? Say things like they're already decided. They are, he replied. No hesitation, no adjustment, just certainty. Kendra shook her head once, exhaling slowly. You haven't changed. A brief pause. Then, neither have you. That hit differently, because this time, she didn't argue. The room felt still again, but not uncertain, not unclear. Just a line towards something. Where are you? He asked. Kendra hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then, at home. Good. A beat. Stay there. Her brow furrowed. Why? And then, without pause this time, I'm coming to see you. Everything narrowed. Focus, time, thought. Wait, she said, straightening slightly. You're in New York? Yes. That answer came without delay. And I think it's time we stop doing this over the phone. Kendra didn't respond immediately. Because now, this wasn't just a conversation anymore. This was movement. Real, immediate, unavoidable. Xavier, she started, but the words didn't follow, because part of her wanted to say don't come. Another part was already preparing for him to arrive. The conflict sat there, clear, unresolved. Okay, she said finally, simple, but not small. Because with that one word, everything shifted forward. Good, Xavier replied. A pause. Then, I'll be there soon. The line went quiet. Kendra lowered the phone slowly. Her grip loosened, but her mind didn't, because now, there was no distance left, only what came next. The room didn't feel the same anymore. Nothing had moved, nothing had changed. But everything felt different. Kendra stood in the center of her apartment, the phone still in her hand, her gaze fixed ahead without really seeing anything. He was coming. Not later. Not eventually. Now. She lowered the phone slowly, placing it on the table with more care than necessary, like sudden movement might shift something she didn't fully understand yet. Her chest rose with a steady breath. Then another. Not rushed, not uneven, but deliberate, because whatever this was, it wasn't something she could meet unprepared. She moved, not pacing, not restless, focused. Her eyes scanned the room, taking in details she had stopped noticing before. The couch, the small table, the frame she had just adjusted. Everything was exactly where it should be. And somehow, that felt strange, because for the first time in a long time, her space felt temporary. Kendra walked toward the window, glancing outside. The city moved the same way it always did. Lights flickered on in nearby buildings. Cars passed below. People crossed streets without looking up. No one knew. No one felt the shift that had just taken place inside this room. She turned away from the window. Her posture straightened slightly. Her shoulders settled. Not tense. Not relaxed. Ready. Time didn't move normally. Seconds stretched. Each sound became clearer. A door closing somewhere down the hall. Footsteps passing. A voice fading in the distance. Every detail sharpened. Kendra glanced at the clock, then away, then back again. Not because she needed to know the time, but because waiting without knowing how long felt unfamiliar. She didn't like that. Her fingers tapped lightly against her arm, stopped, then stilled completely. Control. That was always the first step. Minutes passed. Or maybe less. It was hard to tell. Then, footsteps, closer this time, not rushed, not heavy, measured. Kendra's head turned slightly toward the door. Her focus locked in. Not tense, alert. The footsteps stopped, right outside. Silence followed. Brief, still, then. 3 knocks. Firm, even, certain. Kendra didn't move immediately, not because she hesitated, but because she recognized something in that knock. Precision. Control. Her breath slowed slightly. Then she stepped forward. Each step steady, unhurried. She reached the door. Her hand hovered near the handle for a fraction of a second. Then, she opened it. And there he was. Xavier. Standing in the hallway like he had never left the world she once knew. Not dressed for show, not trying to make an impression. But his presence did it anyway. Straight posture, calm expression, eyes focused. Everything about him felt grounded, not rigid, not distant, just controlled in a way that came from experience. Kendra didn't speak, not right away, because seeing him was different from hearing him. Time had changed him, that much was clear. But not in a way that weakened him. If anything, it had refined him. His gaze met hers, direct, unwavering. And for a second, neither of them moved, neither of them spoke. Because this moment, it wasn't casual, it wasn't light. It carried history. Not loud history, but real. You look, Kendra started, then stopped. Xavier's expression shifted slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. Different? He offered. Kendra exhaled softly. Yeah. A small pause. But also the same, he nodded once. I was thinking the same thing. That small exchange didn't break the tension. But it changed it. Just enough. Kendra stepped aside. You're going to stand there or... I'll come in, he said, already moving. He stepped past her, and just like that, the space changed again. Kendra closed the door behind him. The sound clicked softly into place. Final. She turned back, watching him for a second. Because now, he wasn't a voice, he wasn't a memory. He was here, and whatever came next was no longer something she could prepare for from a distance. Kendra didn't speak right away after closing the door. She turned slowly, her eyes settling on Xavier as he took a few steps into the apartment, his gaze moving across the room with quiet awareness. Not searching, not judging, just observing. That alone said a lot. He noticed things, always had. You've changed the layout, he said. Not a question, a statement. Kendra folded her arms loosely, leaning her weight slightly onto one leg. Not much, she replied. Just enough. He nodded once, taking in the space again. It fits, he said. She raised a brow slightly. Fits what? You. That answer came too easily, too certain. Kendra looked away for a second, walking past him toward the kitchen. You want coffee? She asked. Xavier didn't hesitate. Yeah, a beat, as long as it's not the same as before. That caught her off guard. Not because of the comment, but because of the memory attached to it. A small breath escaped her, almost a laugh. It's worse now, she said. That was enough. Enough to shift the air slightly, not lighter, but less rigid. She reached for the mug again, repeating the same motion from earlier, but this time it felt different, not routine, aware. Xavier didn't sit immediately. He moved slowly, stopping near the table, his hand resting briefly against the surface before he looked back toward her. You built this on your own? He asked. Kendra didn't turn around right away. Yeah. A pause. Everything here, I did it myself. No pride in her tone, no need to prove it. Just fact. He nodded again. I can see that. The kettle began to heat again. A low sound building gradually. Kendra leaned slightly against the counter, arms crossing again, her gaze shifting toward him. You've been watching me longer than you said, haven't you? She asked. Xavier didn't react immediately. He met her eyes. Direct. I've been aware, he said. That's not the same thing. No, he agreed. It's not. That answer didn't avoid anything. It just didn't explain everything either. Kendra exhaled once, pushing off the counter as she reached for the kettle. She poured the water slowly, her movements controlled, steady. You always did that, she said. Did what? Answer without answering. Xavier's expression shifted slightly. Only when the full answer matters. Kendra handed him the mug. As their fingers brushed, just briefly, both of them noticed. Neither of them pulled away too quickly. But neither of them held the moment either. Xavier stepped back slightly, giving space again, not distancing, just balancing. They sat, not directly across from each other, not far apart either, close enough to feel the presence, far enough to stay guarded. Kendra leaned forward slightly, resting her forearms on her knees. All right, she said. No more circling. Xavier took a small sip of the coffee, paused, then looked at her. You're right, he said. That was new. Kendra tilted her head slightly. About? We don't have time to go around this, not tense, focused. Good, she said. Because I need clarity. Xavier set the mug down, carefully. You're going to get it, he replied. A moment passed. Then, but before that, Kendra's brow tightened slightly. Before what? He studied her. Not long, not intensely, just enough. I need to know where you stand. She didn't hesitate. I'm here, that's not what I mean. Leaned back slightly, crossing her arms again. Then say what you mean. Xavier held her gaze. Steady. If this goes where I think it's going, a brief pause. You don't get to stay halfway in, that landed clearly. No confusion. Kendra's expression didn't change immediately. But something in her eyes sharpened. I didn't agree to anything yet, she said. I know. Then don't talk like I did. I'm not, he replied. I'm preparing you. That word, it shifted something. Kendra stood up slowly, not abruptly, not defensive, but she needed movement. You don't prepare someone by dropping something like this on them out of nowhere, she said. Xavier didn't interrupt. You don't show up after years, she continued. Bring up a name I buried. And then expect me to just step into whatever this is. Her voice stayed controlled. But now, it carried weight. I'm not expecting that, Xavier said. Kendra turned slightly toward him. Then what are you expecting? A beat. Honesty. That answer didn't escalate anything. It grounded it. Kendra held his gaze, searching, not for answers, but for intent. And what does that look like? She asked. Xavier leaned forward slightly. Not closing distance, just engaging. It looks like you admitting that part of you is still there. Kendra didn't respond immediately. Because that wasn't easy to dismiss. The room felt still again, but not tense, not uncertain, clear. Because both of them knew this wasn't about convincing. It was about facing something that had already started moving. If you feel this tension, Kendra said quietly, almost to herself, but just loud enough, then you already know this isn't simple. Xavier didn't smile. But something in his expression shifted. Agreement. Because he did know. And so did she. The only difference now was that neither of them could ignore it anymore. If you feel this tension, if you can sense something bigger building beneath the surface, stay with this story. Because what comes next changes everything. The room settled into something quieter, not calm, not tense, focused. Kendra remained standing for a moment after speaking, her arms still crossed, her posture steady but alert. Xavier didn't rush to fill the space this time. He let it sit, let it build. Because now, this wasn't about easing into anything. This was the point where things moved forward. Kendra broke the silence first. Start talking. No hesitation, no softness, just direct. Xavier leaned back slightly, his hands resting together, his gaze locked on her. You asked for clarity, he said. You're going to get it. She didn't respond, didn't interrupt. There was an incident, he continued, recent. A slight shift in his tone. Quiet. Kendra's eyes narrowed slightly. What kind of incident? The kind that doesn't make the news? That answer didn't explain much, but it told her enough. This doesn't sound like something that involves me, she said. It does. No hesitation. Kendra took a slow step forward. Then explain how. Xavier stood up. Not abruptly, not to dominate the space, just to meet her at the same level, because what was found, a brief pause, points back to something you were part of. Kendra's expression hardened slightly. That's not possible. It is. You don't even know what I was part of. Xavier held her gaze. I know enough. That answer didn't sit well. You're making assumptions. No, he said. I'm following patterns. Kendra shook her head once. Patterns don't mean anything without context. Exactly. That caught her attention. And that's why I'm here, Xavier added. Kendra's arms dropped slowly to her sides. Not relaxed, just open. Then give me context, she said. Xavier took a step closer, measured. The incident involved movement. Movement? Controlled, precise. Her breathing shifted. Almost unnoticeable. Not random, he continued. Not careless. Kendra didn't speak. It was intentional, he said. And it followed a structure I haven't seen in a long time. A beat passed. And? She asked. Xavier's voice lowered slightly. Not quieter, more focused. And the only time I've seen that structure before. We're active. The words landed directly. No space to misinterpret. Kendra didn't react immediately, but inside, something moved. That doesn't mean it's connected to me, she said. No, Xavier agreed. It doesn't. A brief pause. But it means someone learned from the same system. Her eyes sharpened. And that system wasn't public, he added. Silence. Because that changed the weight of everything. Kendra took a slow breath, then another. How much do they know? She asked. Xavier didn't look away. Not enough. A pause. But they're asking the right questions. Her jaw tightened slightly. Kendra turned away, taking a few steps toward the window. Her reflection stared back at her faintly. This is exactly why I left, she said. I know. I didn't want this following me, I know. She turned back sharply. Then why are you here? Xavier didn't hesitate. Because it already has. That landed harder than anything else. Kendra stared at him for a second, then shook her head slowly. No. It wasn't denial. It was resistance. I stayed out of it, she said. I didn't leave anything behind. Xavier watched her carefully. Then, that's where you're wrong. Kendra's expression shifted. Slightly. You don't walk away from something like that and leave nothing behind, he continued. A pause. You carry it. That hit deeper. Kendra didn't respond immediately. Because that was harder to argue. The room fell still again. Then, what exactly are they looking for? She asked. Xavier reached into his jacket slowly. Not sudden, not dramatic. Kendra's eyes followed the movement. He pulled something out, small, flat, and placed it on the table between them. Kendra stepped closer. Her focus locked in. Then she saw it, and everything else disappeared, because sitting there was something she hadn't seen in years, her insignia, not damaged, not altered, exactly as it was. Her breath caught, not loud, but enough. Her hand hovered above it, not touching, just there. How did you get this? She asked. Xavier didn't answer immediately. Where was it found? She added. A pause, then, in a place it shouldn't have been. Her fingers curled slightly. Phoenix, she said quietly. Not to him. To herself. Because now, there was no doubt left. Xavier's voice followed. Steady, certain. They're not just asking about the past anymore. A beat. They're looking for you. The room didn't move, but everything inside it had changed. And this time, there was no stepping away from it. Kendra didn't touch the insignia, not yet. Her hand hovered above it for a moment longer before slowly pulling back, like contact would confirm something she wasn't ready to fully accept. Her eyes stayed locked on it, focused, sharp. Because this wasn't just an object, it was proof. Her voice was steady, but lower now, more precise. Xavier didn't move immediately. Enough to make it a problem. Kendra lifted her head slightly. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters right now. That didn't sit well. You said they're asking questions, she pressed. Questions about me? Yes. Then how far are they? This time, Xavier didn't delay. Closer than they should be. That was enough. Enough to shift the air again. Kendra stepped back from the table, creating space between herself and the insignia. Not distance, just perspective. Start from the beginning, she said. Xavier nodded once, then began. A few weeks ago, there was movement flagged. Her eyes narrowed slightly. By who? Doesn't matter, he replied. What matters is what they saw. Kendra didn't interrupt. It wasn't random activity, he continued. It followed a pattern, a brief pause, efficient, clean, controlled. Kendra's expression didn't change, but inside, she recognized it. They didn't understand it at first, Xavier added. They thought it was isolated. And now? She asked. Now they know it's not. Kendra folded her arms slowly. Why? Because it repeated. That word landed differently. Same structure, he said. Same precision. Kendra's gaze shifted briefly to the insignia again, then back to him. And that led them to me? She asked. No, Xavier said. It led them to a system. A beat. And you were part of that system. Kendra's jaw tightened. That system wasn't documented publicly, he continued. It wasn't accessible. Her breathing slowed slightly. So the fact that someone is using it now, he added, means one of two things. Kendra didn't speak. Either someone who was part of it is active again. A pause, or someone learned from it. The second option sat heavier. Learned how? She asked. We don't know. Kendra turned slightly, walking a few steps away, her mind already moving ahead. If someone studied it, she said slowly, they'd need access. Yes. And access wasn't easy. No, she stopped, turned back. So, either someone got too close. Possibility hung there, uncomfortable. Kendra shook her head once. No. Not denial, refusal. I made sure of that, she said. Xavier didn't challenge her immediately. I know you did, he said. That response didn't dismiss her, it acknowledged her. But this isn't about what you intended, he added. It's about what remains. Kendra's eyes narrowed slightly. What exactly are they trying to do? She asked. Xavier stepped closer to the table, his gaze briefly dropping to the insignia before returning to her. They're not just searching, he said. They're preparing. Her posture shifted. For what? She asked. For execution. That word cut clean. Kendra's expression hardened. Not random targets, he continued. Not scattered activity. A beat, focused. On what? She didn't ask it out loud, but he answered anyway. On individuals tied to that system. Kendra's breathing changed again. Slightly. But enough. They're building something, Xavier said. And they're removing anything that could interfere with it. Her gaze locked onto his. And I interfere, she said. Yes. No hesitation. Silence followed. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was clear. Why now? She asked. Xavier's expression didn't shift. Because whatever they're planning, a brief pause, it's already in motion. Kendra looked down again at the insignia. That small piece of metal. now carried more weight than it ever had before. And this, she said quietly, gesturing toward it. This is how they track it? It's how they confirm it, Xavier replied. Her fingers curled slightly. They found it, he added. Kendra exhaled slowly. And once they connect enough, they won't need to search anymore, Xavier said. Her eyes lifted again. They'll come directly to you. That was it, no confusion left, no uncertainty, just reality. And for the first time since this started, Kendra didn't push back. Because she understood. This wasn't something approaching. It was already here. Kendra didn't answer right away. Not because she didn't understand, but because understanding came with a cost, and she could feel it now. Pressing in. She turned away from the table slowly, creating distance between herself and the insignia, between herself and everything it represented. Her steps were measured, controlled, but her thoughts, they weren't. They'll come directly to you. Xavier's words didn't fade. They stayed. Clear, fixed. Kendra stopped near the window, her reflection faint against the glass. The city outside continued without interruption. Lights flickered on, cars moved, people crossed streets, everything looked normal. But inside, nothing was. I built something here, she said, not to him, to herself. Her voice was quieter now, but not weak. I worked for it. A pause. I earned it. Her hand rested lightly against the window frame. I didn't take shortcuts. Xavier didn't interrupt. He let her speak. I didn't rely on anything from before, she continued. I started over. That word, it carried weight. From nothing. She turned slightly, her eyes finding his again. So don't stand there and tell me this was always going to catch up to me. Her voice didn't rise, but it carried force now. Xavier met her gaze. Didn't step forward, didn't step back. I'm not saying that, he replied. Then what are you saying? She asked. A brief moment passed. Then, I'm saying, the part of you that built this life, he gestured slightly around the apartment, is the same part they're looking for. Kendra shook her head immediately. No, but this time, it wasn't firm. That's not the same thing, she said. It is, Xavier replied. No, it's not, she pushed back. This is different. How? He asked. Kendra stepped away from the window, her movements sharper now. Because this is real, she said. This is stable. A beat. This makes sense. Xavier's expression didn't change. And the other didn't? He asked. Kendra stopped. Her answer didn't come right away. Because that question, it wasn't simple. That wasn't a life, she said finally. It was a role. Xavier tilted his head slightly. And this isn't? He asked. That landed harder than expected. Kendra's brows tightened. No, she said. This is who I chose to be. Xavier nodded once. I believe you, he said. That caught her off guard. But choosing something, he continued, doesn't erase what came before. Kendra exhaled sharply. I'm not trying to erase it, she said. I just don't live in it anymore. Xavier stepped forward this time. Not closing the distance fully, just enough to shift the dynamic. You don't live in it, he agreed. That line, it didn't feel like an argument. It felt like a mirror. Kendra looked away again, because part of her knew. He wasn't wrong. Images surfaced, quick, uninvited. Moments where decisions came instantly. Moments where hesitation didn't exist. Moments where she moved before thinking. And it worked. She clenched her jaw slightly. That's exactly why I left, she said. Her voice softened. But it carried something deeper now. Because it didn't feel normal. A pause. It didn't feel like me. Xavier watched her carefully. And this does? He asked. Kendra didn't answer immediately. Her mind shifted. Back to earlier. The interview. The question. The silence. Her breath caught slightly. That was just one moment, she said quickly. Xavier didn't respond. It doesn't define anything, she added. Still nothing from him. And that made it harder. Kendra turned back toward him. I'm not going back to that, she said. Firm now. Clear. Whatever this is. Whatever they're doing. She shook her head once. I'm not stepping into it. The words landed. But something about them didn't settle. Xavier studied her for a second, then asked quietly, Are you sure? Kendra didn't hesitate. Yes, too fast. Even she heard it. Her shoulders shifted slightly. I've done enough, she added. Her voice dropped. I gave enough. Xavier didn't challenge that, he acknowledged it. I know, he said. A pause. And that's exactly why this matters. Kendra's eyes narrowed. That doesn't make sense. It does, he replied. How? Xavier took another step forward. Because you walked away with something most people didn't. A beat. Control. Kendra held his gaze. And now? She asked. Xavier didn't look away. Now someone else is trying to take that line. It shifted everything. Kendra's posture changed, slightly, but noticeably, not defensive, alert. Because this wasn't about going back, this was about something coming forward. She glanced briefly at the insignia again, then back at him. Her voice dropped. If I don't get involved, a pause. What happens? Xavier didn't hesitate. They won't stop, Kendra's breath slowed. And if they find me? She asked. They won't just find you, he said. A beat. They'll use you. That landed heavier than anything before. Because now, it wasn't just about danger. It was about control. And that was something she had fought too hard to lose. Kendra didn't move. Not right away. Xavier's last words settled into something heavier than anything he had said before. They'll use you. That wasn't a warning. It was a consequence. She turned slightly, her gaze drifting toward the insignia again, but this time she didn't hesitate. She reached for it. Her fingers closed around it firmly, cold, solid, familiar. For a brief moment everything else faded. The room, the conversation, the life she had built. Because holding it didn't feel distant, it felt immediate. Kendra exhaled slowly, her grip tightening just slightly before she lowered her hand again, placing the insignia back on the table with more intention than before. No. The word came out clear. Xavier didn't react. I'm not doing this, she said. Her voice didn't rise. But it didn't waver either. I'm not stepping back into something I already left behind. She stepped away from the table, putting space between herself and the decision. You said it yourself, she continued. They're building something. A beat. Then let them build it without me. Xavier watched her, carefully. That's not how this works, he said. Kendra shook her head. It is for me. She turned toward him fully now. I made a choice, she said. Her words were sharp, not aggressive, but final. I'm not Phoenix, she added. Silence followed, but this time, it didn't feel uncertain. It felt like a line had been drawn. Xavier didn't step forward, didn't argue. Instead, he asked one question. Answer the phone. That stopped her. Not physically, but internally, because that wasn't something she had prepared for. Kendra's expression shifted slightly. I didn't know it was you, she said. No, Xavier replied. A beat. But you stayed on the line. Her jaw tightened. That doesn't mean anything. It does, he said. Simple, certain. Kendra turned away, walking a few steps toward the window again. You keep turning everything into something bigger than it is, and you keep trying to make it smaller, Xavier replied. That hit. Kendra stopped. Because that wasn't wrong. You think this is about going back, he continued. It's not. She didn't respond. This is about what's already moving toward you, he said. Kendra's shoulders shifted slightly. I'm not running, she said. I know, Xavier replied. A beat. But you're not facing it either. Kendra turned back toward him. I just said I'm not getting involved, and I'm telling you. For the first time, his tone shifted. Not louder, but firmer. You already are. That line. It didn't land softly. Kendra stared at him. No, but this time, there was hesitation. Xavier reached into his jacket again, slow, deliberate. Kendra's eyes followed the movement. He pulled out something else, not the insignia, a small device. He placed it on the table. Kendra stepped closer. What is that? She asked. Look at it, Xavier said. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then leaned in slightly. The screen lit up. Coordinates, data, movement. Kendra's eyes narrowed. This doesn't mean anything to me, she said. It should, Xavier replied. A beat. Look closer. She did, her focus sharpened. Because the pattern, the structure, she recognized it. Her breath slowed. Where did you get this? She asked. Xavier didn't answer immediately. Where was it tracked? She added. A pause. Then, here. Kendra froze. What? Xavier didn't move. Those movements, he said. They're not random. Her eyes stayed locked on the screen. They're mapped, he continued. A beat. And the center point. He tapped the screen once. Is your building. Everything stopped. Not gradually. Instantly. Kendra straightened. That's not possible. It is. No, she said, shaking her head. I would have noticed something. They're not close enough for that yet, Xavier replied. Her breathing shifted again. Then how? They're watching patterns, he said. Not just movement. Kendra stepped back slowly. Her mind moved fast now, too fast, because this wasn't approaching, this was already happening. You said I wasn't involved, she said. Xavier held her gaze. I said you weren't aware. That hit harder. Because now, there was no distance left, no separation. She wasn't outside of it, she was already inside. Kendra ran a hand through her hair, pacing once across the room before stopping again. This doesn't make sense, she said. It doesn't have to, Xavier replied. It just has to be real. She looked at him, and for the first time, there was no resistance left in her expression. Only realization, because now, this wasn't a choice about going back. This was a decision about what to do next, and that was something she couldn't ignore. Kendra's voice came out quieter this time. What do they want with me? Xavier didn't hesitate. They don't just want you, a beat. They want what you can do. The room held that truth. Clear, final, and for the first time, Kendra didn't say no. Because she couldn't. Not anymore. Kendra didn't speak. Not immediately. The weight of what she had just seen, what she had just understood, settled into something sent die inside her. Not panic, not confusion, clarity. Her eyes moved once more to the device on the table, then to the insignia, then back to Xavier. For a brief moment, nothing was said, but something had already changed. She reached for the insignia again. This time, there was no hesitation. Her fingers closed around it, firm, certain. The metal pressed into her palm, cold, real, and instead of pushing it away, she held onto it. Xavier didn't interrupt, didn't comment, he just watched. Kendra turned slightly, her posture shifting, not defensive, not uncertain, aligned, her breathing slowed, not forced, controlled. What do we know about their timing? She asked. No hesitation, no resistance, just focus. Xavier answered immediately. They're still observing. For how long? Not long, Kendra nodded once, processing. They're mapping behavior, she said. Patterns. Her eyes sharpened. Then they're not ready to move yet. Xavier didn't respond right away. Not fully, he said. Kendra turned slightly, walking toward the window again, but this time her movement was different, more precise. They'll want confirmation first, she continued. A beat. They won't act until they're sure. Xavier watched her closely. Because now, this wasn't the same person from earlier. This wasn't hesitation. This was recognition. You're already thinking ahead, he said. Kendra didn't look back. I don't have a choice, she replied. That was the shift. Not acceptance of the past. Acceptance of the present. She turned back toward him. If they're watching, then we use that, she said. Xavier's expression changed slightly. How? He asked. Kendra stepped closer to the table, her gaze moving between the device and the insignia. We don't wait for them to act, she said. A pause. We control the timing. That line landed clean. Xavier didn't argue. Because it made sense. And how do you plan to do that? He asked. Kendra looked up. We give them something to follow. Her tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. Because now, she wasn't reacting. She was planning. Xavier studied her for a moment. That's not without risk, he said. Kendra nodded once. I know. A beat. But doing nothing isn't an option anymore. That was the truth. Simple. Kendra picked up the device again, studying the data more closely now. Her eyes moved quickly. Not scanning, reading, understanding. They're tracking movement patterns, she said. But they're not inside yet. No. She nodded again. Good. That single word. It carried intention, because now, this wasn't about avoiding them. It was about meeting them. down carefully. Then looked directly at Xavier. Her expression steady, focused, resolved. "You said they're building something," she said. "Yes. Then we find out what it is before they finish." Xavier didn't respond immediately, because what he was seeing, it wasn't hesitation anymore. It was alignment. "You understand what that means," he said. Kendra didn't look away. A pause. "It means I don't get to stay where I was. That was it. No resistance left. No denial. Just truth." Xavier nodded once. "Then we move now," he said. Kendra exhaled slowly. Then, for the first time, didn't feel buried. It felt active. And this time, she didn't reject it. She stepped forward. "Tell me everything," she said. Because now there was no going back, only forward. And for the first time since all of this began, Kendra wasn't trying to hold on to the life she built. She was preparing to protect it. The wind came first, sharp, cold, relentless. It rushed across the rooftop, dragging loose debris along the concrete, pushing against anything that didn't anchor itself fast enough. Kendra didn't move, not yet. Her stance was steady, her weight balanced, her focus locked ahead as the city stretched out beneath her in every direction. Lights, motion, distance, none of it mattered. Because right now, everything was here, movement confirmed. Xavier's voice came through, calm and precise. Not loud, but clear. Kendra's eyes shifted slightly, tracking, 2 figures, opposite end of the rooftop, positioned deliberately. "Not random, they're earlier than expected," she said. "Adjustment?" Xavier asked. Kendra didn't hesitate. "No, a beat. They're following the pattern." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Because she understood it. Understood them, the same way she used to understand everything before it happened. A step forward. Her movement was controlled, measured. Every action had purpose now. No wasted motion. "They're testing distance," she continued. "Agreed." Kendra's gaze sharpened. "They don't know how much I've seen. That works in our favor." She didn't respond, because she was already moving ahead. Her eyes scanned the space, edges, angles, access points, everything mapped instantly. "Left side has exposure," she said. "Yes, they'll try to close from there." A brief pause. Confirmed. Kendra adjusted her stance slightly, not reacting, positioning. It didn't matter. Because this was familiar. Not the place, not the situation, but the feeling. Clear, focused, alive. One of the figures moved. Subtle, but intentional. Kendra's body responded instantly. A turn. Perfect timing. "They're advancing," Xavier said. "I see it." Her voice remained calm. Because now, there was no hesitation, no delay, no doubt. Another movement. Closer now. Kendra stepped forward again, not retreating, meeting them, because that was the difference. Before, she reacted. Now, she controlled. "Distance closing," Xavier said. Kendra didn't respond. She was already calculating. 3 steps, angle shift, line of approach, everything aligned. One of the figures raised something. Kendra moved. Fast, not rushed, precise. The gap between them collapsed instantly. A controlled movement, direct, efficient. The first figure lost balance, didn't recover. Kendra shifted again. Second figure, different angle, different timing. She adjusted. No hesitation, no wasted motion, everything connected. Everything followed through. Within seconds, it was over. The rooftop settled again, the wind still moving, the city still alive below. But here, stillness. Kendra stood in place, her breathing steady, her focus still locked in. "Status?" Xavier asked. "Handled," she replied. "No pride, no strain, just fact." A pause followed. Then, "You're back," Xavier said. Kendra didn't answer immediately. Because that wasn't what this was. Not exactly. She looked out across the city for a brief second, then back down at the space in front of her. "No," she said quietly. "A beat. I never left." That truth settled differently. Not as a return, as a realization. Kendra stepped back slightly, her posture shifting again, not out of tension, but transition. Because this part was done. But the reason for it wasn't. She reached down briefly, picking up something left behind. A marker, not random, placed. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she examined it. "They were confirming," she said. "What?" Xavier asked. Kendra straightened. "That I'd respond. And now they know." That changed things. Because this wasn't just observation anymore. It was escalation. Kendra's grip tightened slightly around the object before she let it go, dropping it back to the ground. "They're moving faster now," she said. Kendra turned toward the edge of the rooftop again, scanning the surrounding buildings. "They won't wait long," she added. Xavier didn't disagree. "Then we don't either," he said. Kendra nodded once. Because that was the only direction left. Forward, no delay, no second guessing. The wind pushed harder again, but this time, it didn't feel like resistance. It felt like momentum. Kendra stepped back from the edge, her focus sharper than it had been all day, because now, everything connected, the interview, the hesitation, the doubt, all of it, replaced by clarity, by control, by purpose. "Next move?" she asked. Xavier's voice came through steady. "We take this to them." Kendra didn't hesitate. "Then let's move." Because now, this wasn't about surviving. This was about finishing what had already begun. The city felt different on the way back. Not quieter, not slower, but clearer. Kendra stood near the window again. Same place, same view, but not the same person. The lights outside stretched across the skyline, steady and constant, but her focus wasn't on them. It was on everything that had just shifted. Behind her, Xavier remained still for a moment before stepping further into the room. No urgency, no pressure, because this wasn't about action anymore. It was about understanding what came after it. Kendra's hands rested lightly against the window frame, her breathing steady. "They're not done," she said. Xavier didn't hesitate. "No, they won't stop." Kendra nodded once. "That's what I thought." She turned slowly, facing him again. "But now we know how they move," she added. "A beat. And that means we're not reacting anymore." Xavier studied her for a moment. "We're ahead," he said. Kendra shook her head slightly. "Not ahead," she corrected. "Aligned," that word mattered. Because it meant control, not advantage. Xavier nodded once. "That works." A brief silence followed. But this time, it wasn't heavy, it was settled. Kendra walked back toward the table, her fingers brushing lightly across its surface before stopping near where the insignia had been. She picked it up again. But this time, no conflict, just recognition. "I used to think this was something I had to leave behind," she said, her voice calm, measured. Xavier didn't interrupt. "I thought if I stayed far enough from it," a pause, "I could build something that didn't connect back to it." She turned the insignia slightly in her hand. "But it was never separate," she continued. "A beat. It was always part of me. That wasn't regret. It wasn't frustration. It was clarity." Xavier stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough. "You didn't lose anything," he said. Kendra looked up at him. "I know," she replied. A pause. "I just didn't understand it." That difference mattered. Because now, she did. Kendra placed the insignia down carefully. Not like something she was putting away. Like something she was keeping. "And now?" Xavier asked. Kendra met his gaze. "Now I decide how it's used." That answer carried weight. Not because it was strong, but because it was controlled. Xavier nodded once. "That's the right call." Kendra exhaled slowly, her shoulders relaxing slightly, not from exhaustion, but from resolution, for the first time since this started. There was no internal conflict, no division between who she was and who she had been, because now, they were the same. "Whatever they're building," she said, "we stop it before it gets further." Xavier didn't hesitate. "We will." A brief moment passed. Then, Kendra's expression shifted slightly. Not guarded, not distant. Something more human. "You knew this would happen," she said. Not accusing, not defensive, just direct. Xavier didn't look away. "I knew it might," he said. Kendra nodded slowly. "And you still came. Why?" That question, it wasn't about the mission. It was about something else. Something quieter. Xavier held her gaze. "Because you don't face something like this alone. Simple, but real." Kendra looked at him for a second longer than before, then nodded once. Not dramatic. Not emotional, just understood. "Good," she said quietly. A small pause. "Because neither do you." That was the closest thing to an agreement they needed. No explanations, just trust. And that was enough. Kendra stepped back slightly, her posture steady, her focus clear. "Then we move forward," she said. Xavier nodded. Together, that word stayed, not loud, but certain. Outside, the city continued as it always did, unaware, unchanged, but inside, everything had shifted, not because something ended, but because something had begun. Kendra glanced once more at the insignia, then away, because she didn't need to look at it anymore to understand what it meant. She carried it, not as a burden, as a choice, and this time, it was hers completely, and whatever came next, she would meet it head-on, not as someone trying to hold on to a version of herself, but as someone who finally understood it. Phoenix, she said quietly, not as a name given to her, but as something she accepted, and this time, she didn't look back, only forward, because that's where the story truly begins. If this story moved you, if you felt every moment, every decision, every shift, take a second to like, share, and subscribe, because stories like this aren't just told, they stay with you. And someone out there might need this reminder today. Sometimes, the life you try to leave behind isn't meant to trap you, it's meant to prepare you. Because growth isn't about becoming someone new, it's about becoming honest about who you've always been. And when that moment comes, you don't run from it. You rise,